If you don't know who Hennie Van Vuurren is, Hennie Van Vuurren is an activist, he's a writer, he's a director of Open Secrets, focusing on accountability for economic crimes and human rights violations. He works from within civil society, challenging corruption and the abuse of power, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show, sir. Apartheid, Guns and Money is the book. Hennie, first thing I want to ask you, and this is a thing that I keep on getting back to. 1994, there was that negotiated settlement, but it looks as if it wasn't necessary. They would have been able to go on for 10 or 20 years, eh?
Morning, Rian, and to the listeners. Yeah, indeed. I think it's one of the things for me also as a South African undertaking this research with a small team of colleagues. What was quite incredible is we know so little about the relations that the apartheid state, the government, had with a network of players around the world during apartheid that assisted them, supplying arms and weapons at a time that the United Nations Security Council effectively criminalized that it was a crime to sell weapons to the apartheid government from the late 70s to the early 90s. Our country was at war, and it was at war in the region at the time. And the extraordinary story that we found in documents, in research, working through up to 2 million pages of documents, was the story of a network of people, as you say, around the globe, who assisted the apartheid government in intelligence agencies, political parties, middlemen, politicians who were involved, including heads of state around the world, and did so for profit. They wanted to make extra cash off the apartheid regime, and were happy to support the regime, not only because they supported apartheid, they supported the idea that there should be a white minority government in South Africa who ruled at the expense of the majority. But they did so because they wanted to cash in their support in return for their support. They wanted to cash that in.
So once again, it wasn't necessary. Why then make that call that we'll have this negotiated settlement? They could have continued. Why did they make that call?
Rian, I think one of the myths that we try to bust was precisely this idea that that the end of apartheid was inevitable. And I think that an argument that's often made is that the apartheid state was isolated. It didn't have the support. And as I've said, it did have this extraordinary support. I think it was the wisdom of the time, given the many thousands of South Africans who were dying. They were killed in political violence at the time, that this war had to come to an end. But it is very clear that if the securocrats, and we think back to the time of P.W. Botha and the people that he had working around him, he created a machinery within the state that supported not only the apartheid regime, but that had a logic unto itself. It was looking to constantly arm itself, engage in warfare, and where secrecy had become paramount. And I guess it's a real reminder to us today in our own politics why we have to continue to fight for constitutional democracy.
With us this morning, Hennie Van Vuurren wrote the book Apartheid, Guns and Money. Just a quick question, and just in short, there's a reason why all these COVID things happen, and it's sanctions.
That's right, Rian. So in response to the crime of apartheid, the murder of Steve Biko, the uprisings in Soweto in 1976 and across the country, the international community decides through the United Nations to put in place sanctions that prohibit any countries from selling weapons to the apartheid government and call on them not to supply oil. And what that really does is it creates the secret economy, the shadow economy involving players across the world who see this as a great opportunity to make a lot of cash out of that system. But it also meant that the very powers that were supposed to police this, France, United States, the Soviet Union, China, the United Kingdom, we look at them as the global policemen, if you like, to ensure that these laws are put in place. They, and according to evidence we found when collecting evidence for this book, were themselves corrupted to an extent. They looked the other way, and in certain instances, even the intelligence agencies themselves from these countries facilitated the supply of weapons.
Obviously, this instruction came from somewhere. When we did the TRC, everyone was going, I didn't know a thing. Mm-hmm. So where did the instructions come from to start buying weapons illegally, to sanction bust?
Well, that came from Pretoria. So it came from P.W. Botha, who had been Minister of Defence since the late 1960s. And although South Africa had the capacity to produce weapons, we're often told that the Arms Corps produced all of these so-called magnificent weapons at great cost to the public during the 1980s. They needed technology. That technology had to be bought overseas. And that was really the reason why these networks had to be bolstered around the world.
So all these people who were saying, we all for sanctions against South Africa, all these countries that were selling weapons to South Africa.
Exactly.
No one knew about it.
Rian, exactly like so many white voters who said they never voted for the National Party. This network of people, the supporters that the apartheid regime had in South Africa, was mirrored by supporters around the world who today don't want to talk about the family secrets.
So let's look at corruption, and I'm sure there's going to be the odd ancient P.W. Botha fan that's going to say, but he did it to protect his country. And now these days, people are doing it to enrich themselves. Is there truth to that statement?
Well, P.W. Botha, let's just break this down a bit. P.W. Botha was looking to stay in power. There's nothing that P.W. Botha wanted more than power. He's no different from any politician in that sense from what we have today. And if we lived in a non-racial democracy then, as we do now, I doubt we would have voted for P.W. Botha as state president. So he had to make sure that the white government sat pretty, and in order to do that, had to lock down things, had to build this network of securocrats to protect white minority rule. So the system of apartheid was corrupt. Let's call it by its name. It looked to benefit a small group of people at the expense of the majority. But even inside that, at its really core, at the pit, if you like, of the whole thing, was an even more sinister element, which is this network of economic crime we talk about.
So now, the book is Apartheid, Guns and Money. As I say, I couldn't put this book down. Hennie, thanks for visiting us.
Thanks, Rian.
Great to have you.
Thank you very much.
What an interesting man. Yes, daar's dus die dat ek wens ons het nog 2 ure oor. 8:47.
The Monument Amphitheatre, 27 May. Jacaranda Day 2017. All day. JacarandaFM.com has more.
Being digitally fit also means knowing how to protect your